Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we're going to be having a look at a fantastic vintage Doctor Who publication, An Adventure in Time and Space. Now this first came out as a Partwork and ended up as a very, very professional magazine. So that's what we're going to be having a look at today. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay, and so it was back in 1980, believe it or not, the 1st of June 1980, that the very first issue of An Adventure in Space and Time was released. Now, this actually wasn't the first issue, it was actually a prologue. They, of course, started with Tribe of Gum, or An Unearthly Child, and the series was devised by Gary Hopkins, Tim Robbins, with Jeremy Bentham, who you might know from the Doctor Who world. He did specialist sort of in the early years of the programme. He acted as coordinator and publisher. They all contributed content to the Partwork alongside John Peel and Paul Mount. And as I said, these first issues here were released all the way back in 1980. Now, if you can imagine a Partwork, they were all the rage. I mean, they're still around today, but often they were kept in binders, so these have been punched. And if we pull open Marco Polo here, I remember I started, because I didn't know anything about these until about 83, 84, I had no opportunity to get them. So thankfully, some of them were reprinted. So this one actually, let's have a look here. Yeah, it's got like a cardish cover. It's a slightly thicker cover. And then this was the internal illustration. Now, fantastic stuff. This chap here, Tony, I'm trying to think of his name. I did make a little note of some of the artists, so we'll find out who he is, but he contributed a lot to this magazine. And here we are. Actually, artwork, Anthony Clark. There we are, yes. So it gives you some of the credits here. Tim Robbins was the editor. Gary Hopkins, deputy editor. Artwork, Stuart Glazebrook, Jennifer White and Anthony Clark. And writers, Jeremy Bentham, Gary Hopkins and John Peel. So obviously, back then, all we had as reference was, back in 1980, even the paperback hadn't been printed. So all there was really were, well, they've got a couple of odd telly snaps, the Radio Times cover. And, well, even back then, the audio was doing the rounds of just the audio of it. But there we go. So this, and then the credits, of course. So this was, it might seem ridiculous today, but back then, this was really something else. It really was. And there was no internet, of course, back in 1980. So fans had to rely on this sort of information. And for its day, an incredible effort. Absolutely incredible. And the stories just got released, one by one, in chronological order. Absolutely fantastic. And obviously the quality of the publication improves as time goes on. At the end of each season, generally they would do like a little overview, and CMS were the publisher's Cybermark services. Then we're into season 2 here, Planet of the Giants. And as I said, I stored mine, and a lot of these are my original copies that I gave to my friend George, who we borrowed his collection to go through these today. But this was definitely a big part of Doctor Who in the 1980s, and well, it was a superior bit of publishing, wasn't it? Far better than perhaps what we were seeing in the Doctor Who comic, which was, as I said, more aimed towards the youngsters rather than the more sort of older fan. But this quality is just fantastic, and for a young fan, reading about these early adventures, obviously not being able to see them was really, it was like another world, really. So I've split them all down into, I believe, chronological order, and we've pretty much got them all. There's a few issues of Envision which are missing from the run, but most of them are there. So we can see the full run of stories right the way up to the Paul McGann movie, with most of the specials intact as well. So it was the end of season 2. Just season 3 there, a bit of a take on the Blake 7 logo there on the Galaxy 4 logo. Mission to the Unknown. So approaching the end of Hartnell's run now. This This is dated 82. So as I said, they released about one each month, basically. Not sure what happened on that copy of the Massacre. Celestial Toy Maker. Gunfighters. Savages. The War Machines. The Smugglers, which my mum can remember them filming back in the 60s. She was from Penzance. It was quite a big deal for that neck of the woods back then. And finally we had, running out Hartnell's era, the 10th Planet. Now with each new Doctor, I believe, came a slight improvement in quality, and we move on to the Patrick Troughton ones now. So we'll have a look at Power of the Daleks, and let's see. So once again, it was in loose leaf form, and I've reinforced it there with my W.H. Smith ring binder reinforcements, and there we are. And I remember this quite vividly. Just such a great job. And I remember when I first joined the DWAS, there was a few fans who had the missing stories on audiobook, and they would just be tape to tape, you know, as a way, and you could almost sort of follow along until eventually they all got released with narrations and stuff by the BBC. But boy, it took time, didn't it? So there we are. So you get a little idea. Let's have a look at some of the credits there, just compiled by Gary Hopkins there. I don't think it gave any editorial credits on this particular one, but it's basically the same team that we've been seeing. And as I said, they just carried on month by month, an absolutely incredible undertaking, really. And I've no idea how well the series sold, but certainly all the sort of fans that I knew when I first got into fandom were raving about this. It's just absolutely fantastic. You've got to be buying and reading this, and there we are. So I think this was around the time I started buying them direct from through Cybermark Services, I believe. At their catalogue, I remember getting this one very well. I remember when Fear from the Deep came out, and Victor Pemberton appeared at one of the conventions I went to, and of course the book had already been published by then. And I said, "What did you have?" He said, "Well, all they gave me was the script to base the paperback on." And I said, "Well, there's so much more." And I gave him some stuff photocopied that I photocopied from the Doctor Who magazine, and I gave him a photocopy of this as well as the audio of it. And he said it was the audio that he was most impressed with. So it was so eerie hearing that after so long. And we will see Fury. In fact, this is the one. This is my original one. And I just photocopied it and sent it off to Victor Pemberton at the time. And yeah, it was really, actually couldn't believe it. That's a little take on Alien there. A Wheel in Space. Here's a season 5 overview. Yeah, just terrific, these Dominators. Of course, we did, I think it was the Dominators, yeah, I'm sure that was the one that got repeated, I think in the 5 Faces of Doctor Who, wasn't it, that season? Invasion. Seeds of Death. Space Pirates. Now, the War Games being such a long story, they split that one into 2. So there's War Games Part 1 and War Games Part 2. Then the sort of a season 6 overview. And then they also did, and these are CMSs, they did the black and white of Doctor Who in 2 parts. This is like the Pertwee era, the Hartnell era, and then there's the Troughton era. So that rounded out the black and white era of Doctor Who. So now we come on to the new Doctor here, the John Pertwee era from season 7, and once again, a bit like the TV show itself, it moves into full colour covers, and it moves from being almost, yeah, well, it was a fan-produced, loose leaf partwork into something which is a bit more akin to a professional magazine. Now, rather than look at the first one, I thought we'd pull out the Silurians, which is my favourite one of all of season 7, but I love them all. I really, really do. And there's been a bit of a change behind the scenes now. So Stephen James Walker, who went on to do contribute with a couple of others, David Howe was involved as well in the great Doctor Who, the 60s, the 70s and 80s books. So he's now the editor. And we got cover artwork by a variety of artists, but predominantly Stuart Glaze, but Gordon Langdane, Andrew Martin and Anthony Clark again, Tony Clark. And it's the same overall format that we saw, but now it's all been put into a proper magazine format here. A little bit more expanded. Here's the credits down the bottom there. Contributing still Jeremy Bentham, John Bott, Mark Frankham, Gary Hopkins, Geraint Jones, Trevor Wayne. Distribution Cybermark Services. There we are. Absolutely great. I mean, such detail on each show. Really, really terrific. And there just was nothing like it. You wouldn't get so much coverage of one particular story in Doctor Who Monthly at this point. I mean, you just wouldn't. This was, as I said, it was for the slightly more devoted fan, the slightly older fan maybe. But certainly, I was blown away by these at the time. I really, really was. And I bought them all. So this was the last hurrah for the Doctor Who An Adventure in Time and Space, because from season 12 and Tom Baker taking over, it then changed completely to Doctor Who Envision, and we'll have a look at those in a minute. But let's just look at these. I mean, it does take it to another level, doesn't it? And I just remember loving these so much at the time. Simply superb. And of course, around this time, we were getting to see some of these stories on either the BBC home video release or through the sort of the Doctor Who local group network, where fans were trading dodgy VHS copies with each other. But this original run here of An Adventure in Time and Space ran for an amazing 76 issues, and from 1980 to 1988. So great pedigree here as we go through all the Pertwee stories in order. Very nice. 3 Doctors there. There we are, Planet of the Spiders. Then a season 11 overview, and that was a season 9 overview. Also John Pertwee as a Doctor, so slightly out of place there, but there we are. So that rounds out John Pertwee's run, and that rounds out An Adventure in Time and Space completely, because now it changes into Doctor Who Envision. Now, although I would argue that these perhaps aren't fanzines, particularly when you have a look at Doctor Who Envision, certainly the early ones were produced by fans for fans, so they do come under the fanzine remit. Their history is detailed in this great book here, the fanzine book, which is published by Telos Publishing, and we'll have a look at some of these as the Pertwee ones we've literally just seen. So it's got some good sections on An Adventure in Space and Time, and how it fitted in with what else was going on in the world of Doctor Who fandom at that point and what was being published. And I think you'll find it puts some of the series in context about what else was happening. And well, as you can see, this is a terrific book. I highly recommend it if you're at all interested in this sort of era of Doctor Who. But there are nice pieces on the origins of An Adventure in Space and Time, so do track that one down if you've not already got yourself a copy. Right, now then we're on to Doctor Who Envision. So this is much more, an even more professional magazine. Not all issues have got artwork covers, some of them are photograph covers. Sadly, I'm missing a few from Doctor Who Envision, so we are missing the first 3 from season 12, but we've got Genesis here. And as I said, some of them I remember being available as reprints. So we used to try and pick up all the ones that were in print. But they weren't always that easy to get hold of. Simple as that, you know. As you can see, this is more akin to a magazine now, rather than those loose leaf publications that we had originally. But we're talking 8 or 9 years later now. So things have changed, different, you know, facts have come to light. And just the quality of the writing on that, it's just terrific. Very, very good Radio Times things as well. There we are, with all the contributors, all the similar sort of contributors that we've seen before. But there has been a change behind the scenes. So the editor now is Stephen James Walker. Oh, sorry, I apologise. The editor now is Peter Angelides and Just Richards for the Tom Baker era. Anthony Brown then took over until the final issue, which was, of course, Paul McGann's Doctor Who, the movie. So we'll zoom through these. Now, you'll notice in a minute, well, you see they're actually numbered to issue 10. So they've got the issue, they've got the original BBC serial number as well, which is quite nice. It's a unit special on that one. And into Brain and Morbius, number 12. So there's a few specials dotted around here. And they are in approximate publication orders, so you see when these actually came out. But the whole Tom Baker run was published here. As I said, some of them had artwork covers, some of them were photograph covers. Number 28, it's got a sort of identity now with the Envision stripe on the side there. And the issue number. Leela special, then into Pirate Planet. Androids of Tara. Particularly like that front cover there. That's really, really nice, using the Mona Lisa there in the background. Looks like, looking at the signature, that it's actually been flipped, interestingly. And Shada gets its own issue as well, thankfully. Then season 17 overview. Leisure Hive. Meglos. Full Circle. State of Decay, which I really enjoyed, I remember at the time. We got Logopolis, a final Tom Baker, and then they also did K9 and Co as well. So that ended out the Tom Baker era. So the next thing we got are published by the DWAS. So this was the Doctor Who Appreciation Society reference department, and these were pretty similar to what we had in the original early An Adventure in Space and Time. So these were single sheets, in some cases double-sided, designed to be kept in a binder, and that's how I have mine here. And I believe David Howe, who, you know, publisher of Telos, was involved in the Doctor Who reference department for a long time. So a lot of this was down to him. And various, I remember getting these at the time, little single sheets. And they did some earlier stuff, but then it moved on to the more recent Doctor. These aren't quite in order, but we won't mind too much. And I remember these being offered through the DWAS. There's one on the Who's Doctor Who documentary with all the clips that were used, and various sort of overviews of the seasons. I said these were just single sheets, if you can believe it, and we did one for each sort of story, which is cool. As I said, it's all pre-internet, and this stuff wasn't being put into books like this, so it was a great way to keep like a little record of the show. That's season 19, season 20 here, with the individual sheets. I remember getting these at the time and thinking they're fantastic. That's season 21 with the retrospective. Not such a fan of Warriors of the Deep. I quite enjoyed Resurrection, that was alright. And Planet Fire, of course. And Caves. Yeah, it's not a bad season, was it really? Move on to the Colin Baker ones. It was for Slipback, that one, the radio one. The Doctor Who acronym index. Yeah, published by the Reference Department of the DWAS, February 83. Well, then the repeats. So these are the original repeats. So yeah, we had Unearthly Child. Evil of the Daleks got repeated. Spearhead from Space. Yeah, and a few of them. The Daemons, Sea Devils, Day of the Daleks and Green Death, all in omnibus format. Yeah, see the Planet of the Spiders repeat. 27th of the 12th, 74. I watched that one, I guarantee you. Absolutely loved that one. Although duration, an hour and 46. Yeah, because it's slightly cut down. Yeah, fantastic stuff. But yeah, those are published by the Doctor Who Appreciation Society through their reference department. So that was published at the time, but of course we still had the Peter Davison issue of Doctor Who Envision. So that carried on regardless. And obviously this came out a lot later than what we've just seen, but this was a second look, I suppose, at the Davison era. And well, why don't we have a look at Castrovel since we've got that one out. So it keeps up the high quality. If anything, there's even more pages in it this time round. David McKinty now, another noted writer. Phil Bevan did the cover here. And as you can see, what detail. What detail. Biography of Peter Davison, all his work up to that point. There you go. All that for the one story. Quite incredible, really, when you think about it. It is still the ultimate sort of love letter to every single Doctor Who. I mean, obviously, you know, in more recent times, we've had the Partwork, didn't we? Which, you know, I can't imagine they didn't at least look at these when they were putting the Doctor Who Partwork together, the one which includes all the new series as well. But let's rock on through the Davison era, leading straight into the Colin Baker era, of course. Now, I wasn't quite sure about that cover when I came across it. It seemed to have much too big a neck. There's Caves, a great one. And the season 21 overview. I said there's a couple missing from this run, sadly, but most of them are here, so you get a real feel for it, don't you? Mark of the Rani. I honestly have no idea how expensive or tricky these would be to try and put a run of these original ones together now. I would imagine these Envisions have survived in collections quite easily. I can't imagine you'd have much trouble getting too many of these, but I honestly don't know. I've not looked them up. And the original Adventure in Space and Time as well, who can tell? '89. Here's a Trial of a Time Lord. And there we are. That's up to the end of the Colin Baker era. But of course, they did carry on with the McCoys. So here we are, moving on to the Sylvester McCoy. So issue 91. Slight change in format again. They've updated the logo. If anything, they're looking even more professional and more page counts. And 92 here. And this run that we're looking at here was 1988 up to 2003. Before they eventually completed the whole run. And of course by then we had the new series was back, and the modern iteration with Eccleston and David Tennant. Happiness Patrol. But yeah, there were 109 issues of Doctor Who Envision before it wrapped up, having done everything. The entire classic era. The 25th anniversary overview. An absolutely incredible project when you think about it. I mean, really, really terrific. And they even covered Curse of the Fatal Death. Look at the Wilderness Years. And then the TV movie, which I think, since it's almost the last one, we ought to have a little look at, just so we get our final feel for it. And this is really quite substantial, so we'll flick through. Look at this, from what its humble origins were, up to what it became at the end. I mean, absolutely astonishing when you think about it. What an achievement. And, well, definitely a key piece. This was the very last one, Doctor Who The Legacy. An absolute key piece of Doctor Who history, I think you could say. And, yeah, what a fantastic run that is. So there you go. I hope you liked that little look through Doctor Who, An Adventure in Time and Space, and Doctor Who Envision, plus those bits from the Doctor Who reference department. Absolutely fantastic. An incredible, incredible magazine, and a real testament to the people who put that together. What an achievement. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed looking through those as much as I did. Absolutely filled with nostalgia. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage Doctor Who content, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.